The Unraveling, Why Betrayers Always Fell Hello and Welcome. Today, we're talking about one of life's most painful experiences, betrayal. When people plot against you, when they deceive you and whisper behind your back, they often walk away with a smug sense of victory. They truly believe they've won something, that they've gained power, moved ahead, and left you behind, permanently scarred. They celebrate their little circle of collusion, convinced they're the smart ones. But I want you to understand a fundamental truth. The structure they built on deceit is already collapsing. That foundation of manipulation is cracking beneath their feet. They are starting to learn that what they mistook for strength was nothing more than rot masked by false confidence. There is a deeply psychological phenomenon at play when people unite against someone decent and honest. In that moment of shared malice, they feel a temporary bond. Their alliance is not rooted in true loyalty or shared positive values. It's fueled by mutual jealousy, resentment, or hatred. This type of connection is inherently toxic and cannot endure. You simply cannot build peace on the wreckage of another person's suffering. You cannot find meaning while your hands are full of lies, inevitably. This group of collaborators begins to turn on one another. Why? Because their connection lacks integrity. The glue holding them together was contempt for truth, for decency, and for you. Once the initial thrill of that betrayal wears off, they are left staring at each other with nothing but rising paranoia and guilt. You were their mirror. Understand that you were the mirror they shattered. Because you reflected the truth of their own character. You were a living reminder of everything they weren't: honest, loyal, and morally strong. And when people can't bear that reflection, they try to destroy the person holding it up. But breaking a mirror doesn't change the truth. It just blinds the person who broke it. As their world begins to crumble, they realize they were living in a fragile illusion. It was an illusion that depended entirely on keeping you small, silent, and consumed by doubt. The moment you walked away from their chaos, their false sense of control evaporated. They relied on your stability, your kindness, and your presence in ways they never realized. The void your absence created is something they can't fill, and it begins to consume them from within. Betrayal always carries a heavier cost than it seems at first. It doesn't just end a relationship, it corrupts the inner life. It leaves a pervasive residue of shame and distrust that eats away at the betrayer's mind. They can put on a brave face, they can smile for their world, and they can boast about their superficial successes. But in the quiet hours of the night, when the masks come down, they feel the cracks. The conspirators who once laughed together now whisper about one another. They start to wonder who will betray next. Once a circle is formed on betrayal, the pattern is set. They become both predator and prey. They can't rest. They can't genuinely trust. This is the internal, invisible prison they build for themselves. Your transformation is their punishment while they are fighting among themselves and descending into doubt. You are rising. You are rebuilding on a stronger, more authentic foundation, guided by the wisdom that pain etched into your soul. The betrayal that momentarily broke you has now become a powerful refining fire. You can see people's true motives with crystal clarity. You can sense deceit before it even takes root. You no longer tolerate half-hearted loyalty disguised as friendship. The suffering they caused has become your most profound teacher. And that is what truly terrifies them. They wanted to see you diminished, but instead, you evolved. You became the powerful, self-aware person they feared. You could become someone who no longer needs their approval or validation. Here is the paradox. You don't need to lift a finger for retribution. Life is already delivering it. You cannot cheat the universal moral reality. Every act of deception creates its own inevitable destruction. Every betrayal carries its own poison. Their own actions are now dismantling their world piece by piece. This internal torment is fueled by inescapable guilt. They may try to distract themselves with new goals or relationships. But guilt does not answer to distraction. It whispers during quiet moments, in the spaces between their daily tasks, and in the depths of sleep when their mind is most vulnerable. They can try to rationalize their actions, rewriting the narrative to convince themselves that they were justified. But these rationalizations are fragile. Temporary defenses against a deeper truth their conscience knows. They harm someone who trusted them. The memory of that wrongdoing never fully fades. Guilt also breeds paranoia. The constant awareness that they were capable of betrayal leads them to suspect everyone else. If they could do it to you, someone else could certainly do it to them. Their mind is constantly measuring threats and possibilities of exposure. The simple joy of genuine connection is lost because their interior life is a battlefield of suspicion and fear. This is the cruelest lesson of all. Their guilt is not temporary. It does not simply fade with time. It becomes a permanent, unshakable shadow. It metastasizes and reshapes their internal landscape. The energy they spent trying to diminish you is now draining them from within. They become prisoners of their own moral choice, trapped in a cycle where the very act meant to bring advantage has become a source of persistent suffering. So, let me tell you what you need to focus on. You don't need revenge, because revenge is temporary and keeps you tethered to their energy. What you need is transformation, and that is already happening. While their fragile circle collapses under the weight of its own instability, you are stepping into a new, smaller, and wiser circle founded on truth and strength. You realize that the betrayal was not the end of your journey. It was a cleansing fire that burned away illusion. It revealed who never deserved your loyalty, and more importantly, it revealed the unshakable core of who you are when everything falls away. Remember this, people who betray will always suffer, not always in the dramatic ways you might expect, but in the quiet, unrelenting decay of their inner peace and integrity. They lose the ability to look themselves in the eye without seeing what they've done. Their current connections are haunted by their past guilt. Every moment of false celebration is followed by the echo of what they lost. When they turned against someone who genuinely cared, hold your head high. Let God handle the balancing of the scales. Focus entirely on becoming the kind of person betrayal cannot destroy. Let it sharpen your insight, deepen your spiritual strength, and solidify your personal boundaries. When you rise from this with your integrity intact, you become untouchable. You become a living, breathing testament that goodness, though wounded, always outlasts deceit. Their circle is falling apart, not because of anything you had to do, but because that's what happens when people choose destruction. They created storms in your life, and now they are drowning in their own. Keep your peace sacred. The truth always comes full circle, and theirs is collapsing right now. Let's continue this thought. When you make the deliberate choice to step away from those who caused you pain, a profound shift occurs not just in your life, but critically in theirs. Your departure is more than just physical distance. It becomes an undeniable force they cannot counteract, a void they are powerless to fill. It reflects the immense power they forfeited the moment they turned against you. They operated under the belief that by betraying you, they could successfully diminish your value, undermine your position, and assert total dominance over your life. They expected your silence or your struggle to make you smaller and irrelevant. But they miscalculated. They relied on your essence consciously or not as a stabilizing force within a toxic group. You provided an equilibrium they never truly deserved. When you remove yourself, that balance instantly vanishes. Consider the psychology, your kindness, your consistency. Your integrity qualities they mocked were ironically the very things that kept them grounded in a false sense of certainty. They felt free to act recklessly, to deceive, and to manipulate. Because they had you as a constant moral reference point, your presence was the measure of their assumed success. By betraying you, they aim to eliminate that reference point entirely. But when the person they tried to control decisively steps out, the entire structure they thought was solid instantly feels insecure and hollow. Your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting not just what they lost, but the sheer fragility of their supposed gains. Their dependence on your stability was subtle, yet absolute. They unconsciously assumed you would always be there, providing influence, emotional energy, or social context. Once you leave, the energy they once siphoned from you evaporates. The void you leave is palpable, and they cannot fill it because it was always about the moral space you occupied, not the space they wanted to dominate. Without your anchoring presence, their foundations shake. Their alliances are tested, and deep cracks begin to appear. Suspicion mounts, paranoia intensifies, and every interaction becomes a test of loyalty that is impossible to pass. Because the weak glue of deceit that held them together is simply not built for endurance. There is a profound psychological consequence embedded in the calmness of your withdrawal. By choosing not to engage, not to retaliate, and not to sink to their level, you deny them the very satisfaction they were anticipating. They yearn to see you broken, to watch you struggle, and to feel the pain they inflicted reflected back at them. Instead, you maintain your dignity, you uphold your integrity, and you remove yourself completely from their circle of influence. That composed, decisive removal becomes the consequence they cannot escape. You don't have to take an action against them. The decisive action has already been taken simply by refusing to participate in their world. Any longer, they are left facing a harsh reality. Their elaborate efforts to control, manipulate, and harm you have resulted in nothing but internal emptiness and collective instability. The loss is acute because they realize your absence is a permanent disruption they cannot fix. The alliances within a group begin to fray because they no longer have the anchor you provided. Conversations that once thrived on shared malice now feel meaningless. Every social maneuver they attempt is undermined by the lingering impact of someone who refuses to play their game on their terms. You were the stabilizing variable in their equation, and by removing yourself, you have disrupted the entire system. Their frustration is compounded by their utter inability to undo it. They cannot call you back, they cannot uncommit the betrayal, and they cannot reclaim the moral clarity or energy you embodied. Their suffering is not your revenge. It is the natural consequence of their own choices. Betrayal always incurs a hidden, inevitable cost, and in this case, the cost is the very stability they took for granted. They cannot genuinely enjoy the circle they built because it was never authentic. Your absence simply exposes every lie, every weakness, and every false connection. It is a subtle, yet pervasive, lesson that corrodes their confidence and breeds anxiety. Their world has devolved into a series of incomplete connections, fragile alliances, and constant, weary reassessment of who can be trusted. Hold on to your peace and know that your God is a God of justice, which unfolds through the natural law of consequences. Your freedom is your victory. So, as we bring this discussion to a close, understand this crucial point. The greatest victory you can achieve over betrayal is not through confrontation, but through continuation. Do not look back at the collapsing structure of their world. Your energy is now too valuable to waste on bitterness or resentment. The betrayal you endured was not meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. It has taught you to see truth beneath the surface, to value sincerity above all else, and to protect your peace fiercely. While they are trapped in a vicious cycle of paranoia and guilt, the invisible prison created by their own choices, you are walking toward genuine freedom. You have shed the weight of false loyalties, and you have earned a deeper understanding of your own strength, the universe, under the guidance of God, ensures that moral reality always comes full circle. They are receiving the consequences of the destruction they created. Your job is simply to thrive, to keep building your life on an honest foundation. Keep your integrity sacred and keep moving forward with grace and wisdom. Because when you choose transformation over temporary revenge, you prove that your goodness, though tested, is ultimately unbreakable. Hold your peace. Your future is bright, and it is entirely yours.